What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2021 schedule previews and projected records. West Virginia is up next, the team that finished 6-4 last season. Kind of a sneaky 6-4. I think I said that on the TCU video. This is a team that, they actually got to play two non-conference games. They got to play Eastern Kentucky. That was their opener. An easy win there, of course. And then they also got to play Army in the Liberty Bowl. So they got to play two non-conference games. Plus, and when you look at their Big 12 schedule, they did not play Oklahoma. That game was canceled. But of course, played everyone else in the Big 12. So 10 games for West Virginia, including a bowl game last season. Let's look at the schedule for 2021. They will open up on September 4th on the road at Maryland. A tricky game there. Maryland's a team that showed some promise last year. I think West Virginia and Maryland are both teams that have potential to be pretty good this year, so that'll be a great matchup there. LIU on September 11th should be an easy win. Virginia Tech on September 18th. That'll be a home game for West Virginia, so they'll go on the road to play Maryland and play Virginia Tech at home. Two Power 5 opponents in the non-conference. No, you're not playing a powerhouse team, but still, I give them a lot of credit for scheduling two Power 5 opponents in the same season, especially when you only have three non-conference games. That's going to make your schedule a good bit tougher. So we get into the Big 12 schedule now on September 25th. They will open things up on the road at Oklahoma. Very tough start to their Big 12 conference schedule. There's potential to lose three of your first four games. Three tough games there right out of the gate. Very, very tough for West Virginia. But then they get two of their easier games in the Big 12 with Texas Tech on October the 2nd, and then on the road at Baylor on October the 9th. After that, they'll have a bye week. So they'll play three Big 12 games, then they get the bye week, which is really right in the middle of the season. October 16th is the middle point of the season. So you get a break right there in the middle of the year. Then they go on the road to play TCU on October 23rd. Iowa State on October 30th. Very tough game there, but they do get that one at home. And then they'll get Oklahoma State on November 6th at home. So a couple of very tough opponents there back-to-back, Iowa State and Oklahoma State. Good news is they get both of those games at home. Kansas State on November 13th. That will be a road game for the Mountaineers. Then they'll play Texas on November 20th. Then they close things out with Kansas on the road, final game of the year, November 27th. They do not play any weekday games, all Saturday games for West Virginia. And again, when you look at the schedule, it's a pretty tough schedule. It's not brutal. It's not horrible. But having to play two Power 5 teams in the non-conference, and then, of course, everyone that you have to play in the Big 12, that makes for a pretty tough schedule. I don't see any really tough stretches, though. I think that worked out pretty well for them. They don't have, any really bad back-to-backs. That stretch from TCU to Texas, that's going to be the toughest stretch of their schedule. But they get three of those 5 games at home, so that works out pretty well for them. The bye week comes at a good time right there in the middle of the season. So all in all, the West Virginia schedule is tough, but there are definitely some opportunities, and perhaps some opportunities for them to pull off some upsets when we talk about Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas, all at home. And I don't know for sure if Oklahoma State would even be an upset. I'm pretty high on this West Virginia team. I think they're kind of in the same category as Oklahoma State and Texas this year, but they might be a slight underdog. Who knows? Obviously, a lot's going to change from the preseason until you get into the end of October and November. So let's now look at this schedule, and I'm going to give you a projected record based off of this schedule. And I want to make it very clear that this is not an official prediction. Our prediction will not come until well into the summer for West Virginia. We do a lot of research really throughout the entire offseason, but especially in the spring and all of that before we start making official predictions. But we simply are giving you a projection based off of kind of grouping these teams together in tiers. And I've said this on every Big 12 video. In the Big 12, you've got Oklahoma and Iowa State at the top. That's tier 1. Then you have Texas, Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia. They're kind of in that, and Kansas State. They're kind of in that next tier, the middle tier of the Big 12. Then you have Baylor and Texas Tech a little bit below them. And then finally Kansas, they're in a tier by themselves at the bottom of the Big 12. So that's how we group these teams together, and it'll all make sense once we get into this projection. These are the percentages that we use to kind of give you, again, a rough estimate of who might win these games. A 50-50 game will stay in white. That's a game that I think could really go either way. The spread would be 3 or 4 points. You have less than 10% in red, 10 to 25% in orange, 26 to 40% in yellow, 60 to 74% in purple, 75 to 90 in blue. More than 90%, it will be in the green. So that is the scale that we will be using, and we're going to start there with the green, the easy wins. You got LIU, FCS opponent. Don't really see them having any trouble there. So one easy win, pretty much a guaranteed win there. And then we go to the blue, and normally you would see a Big 12 team with maybe a couple of blue games, but they only have one, and that's the game against Kansas late in the season. Kansas is really a disaster right now. I don't see them competing with really anyone in the Big 12, so that should be a win. But it is a conference game. I think we have to at least put that in the blue. But they don't have another non-conference game outside of LIU that could potentially be an easier win because of that schedule with Maryland and Virginia Tech. So 2 easy wins. That means there are 10 games on the schedule that they could potentially lose. And this team's not going to go 2-10. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they're going to have 10 tough games on this schedule. We're going to go to the purple games now, the games that are 60 to 74%, and these are games where I think West Virginia will be favored by about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points, somewhere in that range. And I'm going to go with Texas Tech and Baylor. I think those 2 games really fit in this category, and really it goes back to those tiers that I mentioned earlier. Now I know West Virginia lost to Texas Tech last year, and it's very close for me. This is not one that is anywhere near 74%. It's closer to 60%. But again, when you just group these teams into the tiers that they're in, West Virginia is in a tier above Texas Tech. Plus, they get them at home this year. And so I think Texas Tech and Baylor are games where West Virginia will be favored, but again, not by a whole lot. And then we have the games where they'll be underdogs. I think you have 2 of those, Oklahoma and Iowa State. Again, they're from that top tier of the Big 12. It's going to be tough for West Virginia, really, in both of these games. And I would even say with Oklahoma being on the road, that one's closer to the orange. I think that's, down there, 30%, somewhere in there. Iowa State might be a little closer to 40% because it's at home. But both of those games will be tough. I think West Virginia will be about a touchdown underdog in both matchups. You could look at it like this. Maybe they're going to be an 8-point underdog against Oklahoma and a 6-point underdog against Iowa State. And again, that could change if Oklahoma turns out to be as good as we think they could be, and West Virginia is not that great. That could be a double-digit spread, and again, that would bump that into the orange here. But we're going to put it in the yellow, so 2 games in the yellow, and then that leaves you with 6 games on this schedule that really could go either way. We have 6 50-50 games for West Virginia. Maryland, Virginia Tech, TCU, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Texas. All of these games will be very tough. All of these games are games that could go either way, in my opinion. I think West Virginia is probably going to be a little bit better than Maryland, but that game's on the road. Virginia Tech, I think West Virginia has a great shot to win that game as well. Virginia Tech has a lot of question marks. TCU on the road, I'd probably favor TCU. Oklahoma State, that one's really a toss-up. Kansas State's really a toss-up. Texas is a toss-up. So again, all of these games are very tough to call, and I'm going to put them all in that 50-50 category. So what we do here is we take the purple games, first we take the green and the blue and count those as wins. Then we look at the rest of the schedule. The purple is counted as 60%, the yellow is 40%, the white games is 50%. Again, all of these games are not going to be that exact percentage, but I just kind of group them together and go with a conservative approach to this. And when we average those numbers out, the projection for West Virginia comes out to 7-5. So a 7-5 projection for the Mountaineers. I think that's very fair. I think they have a very good shot at going 7-5. Could they do a little better? Maybe. I could see this team getting to 8-4, but I could also see them at 6-6. So I think that's, again, a fair projection right there in the middle, and it would have them splitting these 10 games that could really go either way. Or even if you looked at it like this, they're going to lose to Oklahoma and Iowa State. They're going to beat Texas Tech and Baylor. Then the other 6 games, it would have them splitting those games. So either way you want to look at it, pretty much they're just going to split those games with this projection. And if they do that, they will finish 7-5 in 2021. Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you think they'll be better or worse? Do you think it's a fair projection? Maybe I'm missing something. Give me your thoughts on this down in the comments below, and thank you for watching this video.